All right, guys. Good morning. I'm in Wyoming, heading to Utah for a delivery on Monday, and I wanted to talk about some stuff on the channel that some comments I got. I wanted to address them, and so the first comment I wanted to get at was somebody had mentioned, and thank you guys for all the comments. It's been fun reading them and just seeing how everybody else kind of reacts and what everyone else is doing. There's a lot of I didn't realize this, but apparently there's a lot of truck drivers who are carnivore or low carb or something similar and having good results. So that's awesome. But one comment said, "That's great, but don't be afraid to reintroduce carbs." And I'm not afraid to reintroduce carbs, first of all. So thank you for the comment. But I do want to get at the get down to why we would say that. Why would we say if getting rid of carbs make us super healthy, and then don't be afraid to reintroduce them, right? Why would that be? Because that seems to be a thing in the carnivore space where everyone talks about reintroducing carbs, and it's like, well, hang on. If the healing happened from getting rid of the carbs, then why is it some sort of magic thing by reintroducing them? Now, I think what's going on here. I'm not this big anti-plant, anti-carb, person. I think that there's a specific reason why it's very, very healing to the body. Um, and so certain carbs I think are fine to have in our diet, but when we're trying to heal something, now I'm not trying to heal something. I'm fairly healthy because I'm extremely low carb all the time anyway. Um, but for someone who's trying to heal something like maybe obesity or diabetes or arthritis or epilepsy or any of these conditions that are, you know, in some cases life threatening, in other cases just super annoying, I think we should be very, very strict and get rid of carbs entirely until such healing has occurred. Um, but but it just seems I just wanted to address that. I don't know why we would have to add carbs back in, other than we just enjoy eating some of the foods that have carbs. So when we say don't be afraid to add carbs back in, I think that's the wrong term. I think we need to say um, carbs are okay once we've healed our body. In the case of we want to enjoy life and we want to enjoy these foods, um, but that's where we need to be very, very careful with the amount, and we need to cycle back to a week or 2 weeks of no carb to heal our body again. So carbs are always bad, I guess is what I'm going to say. Um, I know everyone's going to say, well, there's good carbs and bad carbs. There's worse carbs and bad carbs. That's kind of what I believe. We've got carbs that are okay, like sweet potatoes, but your body is better without sweet potatoes. They're just not as bad as like bread. So yes, we do have good carbs and bad carbs, but it's not really good and bad. It's bad and worse. So we are clear now that you can survive and thrive on no carbs at all. So why would we ever say, well, we need to add them back in? No, we don't need to add them back in. We might want to just simply because we want to enjoy some of the foods. And when we're healed and our body is strong and thriving, our body can eat those carbs and digest them and have almost no effect, right? And that's what we're trying to get our bodies to, is to the point where we can enjoy these foods that are harmful, yet have no effect, have no harm to our body. But if we continue to enjoy them and go on binges, they will harm us. So I just want to address that comment. So just keep in mind, everybody, that's my opinion on it. Is that, I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to tell you to do anything. I'm just saying that's my opinion. All carbs are not healthy, although there are some carbs that have healthy things in them, like sweet potatoes and some of the vegetables that have carbs in them do have some nutrition in there that we're getting in addition to the carb. But the carb itself, the sugars, are not necessarily healthy, and we can be more healthy without them. But once we heal our bodies and once we we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, it's totally fine to harm our bodies again to enjoy ourselves. It's kind of like saying, if we're a cocaine addict and we get off cocaine and we heal our bodies and now we're good, now we can have a little bit of cocaine again. That's kind of the argument. And as much as that's absolutely a no, we don't want to have a little cocaine again after we've been addicted to it. For someone who's not addicted to cocaine, again, there's no benefit to cocaine. It's all harmful. But in the event that maybe cocaine had some good stimulants in it that were healthy, but really bad stimulants, then maybe you might take some cocaine just for the good stimulants that were healthy. But that's not the case. But you see my point there. So in the carbs case, there is some carbs that have nutrition in them. So if we're not addicted to carbs, we've broken that addiction and we've healed our bodies, it's okay to participate in a little bit of, things that we used to be addicted to, as long as we've broken that addiction and we can handle it. But if you're addicted to carbs and you're addicted to sugar, I would say don't reintroduce it. There's no need to. You're thriving, you're healthy. If you've been carnivore for a year or 6 months and you're thriving, why in the world would you stop it? So long as you're in a spot where you feel like you could break that addiction again, you could try it. You could reintroduce some good carbs and see what happens. If you're okay with testing. But a lot of people that have come from a really sick place, healed their bodies and experienced unbelievable healing, experienced a feeling that they never thought they'd feel before. After being 300 pounds, they're down to 180 or something like that, and there's no way they're going to bring carbs back in. They don't want to take that chance, and that's totally fine. There's no secret to bringing carbs back in. There's no benefit really when you can get all the nutrition you need through just meat. Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That is, and then that leads me into another comment. So that was just one comment I wanted to address. It's not exactly a wrong comment. It's a great comment, but I think that it's kind of always coming, that idea is always coming from the wrong spot, that carbs are somehow good for us. There's some things in the foods that also have carbs that can be healthy. There is nutrition in carbohydrate foods, but not nearly as dense nutrition as in meat. So the next comment was, and I tried to look for the comment this morning. It's been a couple of weeks since I read it, so it's going to be from memory. And it was a Bible verse in Daniel where there was a couple of people in prison and they were being fed the king's food, and the prophets or whoever they were said, just give us vegetables for 2 weeks or 10 days or something like this, and see if we're not more healthy than the king's food. And it was just a scripture that kind of pointed out the fact that plants are more healthy than meat. And I think it's probably a scripture that Seventh-day Adventists use a lot because they're always vegetarian. But the problem with that verse is, first of all, the king's food, it said so in the verse that it included wine, and probably a lot of other foods that were not healthy. Whereas plants, especially back in Bible times, were extremely healthy. They hadn't been altered. So I think I don't think that's really a good excuse for why we should be vegetarian, because and another thing. So first of all, I think that was kind of a verse that might have worked then. We don't know, and it didn't explain what the king's food was, but it did say wine. Although I don't think wine in small doses is all that bad for you. It's also not good for you, right? Tons of sugar. So it would have had meat as well. That was kind of the point, is that the king's food would have had meat, and they went on a strictly vegetarian diet and they got healthier. Well, first of all, that I don't think that's a real good example, because we don't know what the king's food was. It could have been full of, all sorts of baked pastries and who knows what they were eating back then. The other thing I want to address is that I actually do agree with that. I don't totally disagree with that, and where I'm coming, and I'm like I said, I'm not really a hardcore. We need to only be eating meat because meat is the healthiest food. It does accidentally be that way. I think this is really a case of what is available today to us. When we look at what was like, if we look at just the food that God made. The plants and vegetables and meat that God made. It's all very healthy for us. We are omnivores. We can digest plants, we can digest meat, and I think that's very healthy. But I think what we need to look at is why in today do carnivores thrive when vegans and vegetarians really don't. And there was a time when they did, right? We've had years and years of vegetarians being very healthy. Well, I think, and we still have vegetarians and vegans who are seemingly very, very healthy. I think it's the source. I think that's why we see this drift or this rift between the vegans and the carnivores and the vegetarians and all that. Is it can be a very healthy diet because plants do have a lot of nutrition in there for you. And if we eat plant matter that is raised and grown the way God intended and is the plant that God made, I think that can be extremely healthy. When we eat plants that have been genetically altered in a lab and then sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup, their entire lives, and then plucked way before they ripen so that they can sit on the shelves and ripen for good shelf life, it's no wonder why we're dying early. I mean, we should be living to 120 years old. That's what the human body should live to. But yet we don't. And I think that's why it's no wonder we've screwed with our food supply to the point where it's not even the food that God intended us to eat. So so that's my opinion on it, guys. I do believe that meat is absolutely the most nutritious food out there. I don't believe that it's because meat has any sort of special, some sort of superfood or anything. I think it's simply because plants are so harmful. And God didn't intend plants to be harmful, but we have made them so. If you look in the store, if you go through the produce section and you look in the store, there's nearly no food there that hasn't been genetically altered or sprayed with herbicides. Even the organic foods. If you look at if you do any research and find out what it takes to be organic, that they don't spray like glyphosate on there. They use a organic form of poison and spray on there. So it still has poison on there. It's just not a chemical grade of poison. It's an organic grade of poison that's allowed under the organic rules. So again, are we really getting true food? Or are we getting food sprayed with chemicals that our body really should not be having? And so I think it really just comes down to the access we have. If we were able to grow our own vegetables in our backyard and have our own chickens and have our own beef, then that's really what God intended, right? But when we go to the stores and we buy stuff, beef ends up being the most nutritious. And the reason I believe this, and this is my opinion on this, guys, so don't beat me up on this, but this is my opinion. I think that the reason meat is more nutritious and gets the crap out is we're still spraying the stuff on the food that we're feeding the animals, right? But the animal's stomach digests it, polishes it, and cleanses it. And by the time we get to the meat, it's been polished and cleansed. and we don't get that bad stuff because the animal's body has removed the toxins. And so I think it really is just a matter of removing the toxins. If we could remove the toxins from the vegetables, I think vegetarians could probably be healthy again. But it, unless you have a farm where you can control the experience of the plant, you control the planting, control the whole life of the plant, and control the harvest, then you're not going to be healthy eating vegetables. That's my personal opinion. Can you have some vegetables in the mix to make your diet a little more fun? Yeah, sure, but you're getting toxins in there. Um, should we buy organic? Yes, we should, but organic can be very expensive, and at the end of the day, we don't fully even know what we're getting when we buy organic. I would still do it because we're moving in the right direction, supporting the farmers who try their best to plant and raise organic plants. We should support those people because that's going the right direction. So yes, buy organic as much as you can afford it, but at the end of the day, we're still not getting pure and polished and clean nutrition. The only way we can really do that is with meat, or it's at least accidentally the best way. And I think that's really the better way to look at carnivore. It's not that carnivore is this magic cure. It's that carnivore is accidentally today better, just simply because it reduces the toxin load. So that's my personal opinion on it. I think that when we look at the Bible verses that might lead us down the path that we should not be purely carnivore. I don't disagree with that mindset. However, when we look at the food today, is that anywhere near what God made? If we look at wheat just in general, and I did another video on this, my last video, I haven't posted yet actually, but I talked about wheat a little bit. Wheat is one of probably the most genetically altered plants out there, and it nowhere near resembles what God made. I don't know the number. I read this in a book called Wheat Belly, and I'd recommend buying that book and getting it. It was written by a doctor. I can't remember his name, but it's called Wheat Belly, and he had pointed out the standard or the ancient grain of wheat. I had 14 chromosomes. We bred it with, or we cross-pollinated it with another wheat that gave us einkorn wheat, which we can still buy today. It's an organic wheat. You can look it up. Einkorn wheat starts with they spell it with an E like Einstein. Einkorn wheat, and it has 28 chromosomes. The dwarf wheat that we eat today, that almost every farmer plants, has something like 114 or 140 chromosomes. It's been genetically altered so many times that it doesn't even resemble what God produced. And so when we say, oh, well, God, or, the Bible ate bread and Jesus passed bread out for Passover, yes, wheat that was produced by God, not wheat that was produced by man in a laboratory. So I think that's where we kind of gotten wrong, and I think we can clearly say that the wheat today is nowhere near what the wheat was in the Bible times. So was it okay to eat wheat back in the Bible times? It clearly was. They did it all the time. There's not really any verse that you can point to that says, refrain from eating bread. The only verse you can really point to is the man cannot live on bread alone, which points out the fact that bread, wheat, grains were a supplement to the diet, not the full diet. But again, that wasn't really Jesus talking about the food. He was trying to prove a point. So again, we say all kinds of things even today, and we don't mean what the words say. So I think that's my take on it. That's how I think about it. That's why, because a lot of people will get that way, like, well, bread's fine because Jesus ate bread, and whatever Jesus did is fine for us. Yeah, go eat the bread that he ate. It's nowhere near what the bread we have today in the stores, or it's nowhere near the flour we can buy in the stores today. So that's my thoughts on it. That's my thoughts on the comments I was getting, guys. Thanks for all the comments. I appreciate you guys interacting and giving the comments, and I really enjoyed reading those. Um, and But anyway, that is my opinion on it. I think that that is absolutely true. Both those comments that I addressed today were absolutely true. Um, but sometimes we have to understand where we're coming from here. And carbs cannot be all bad, but they also, come along with some toxins, maybe only due to the fact of how we plant them, how we harvest them, and how we spray chemicals on them. You know, so I think really it's just understanding what we have today available to us and having to pick and choose the foods that are available to us in the stores for the healthiest choice. And accidentally, meat, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs accidentally ends up being the best. I believe the reason why is that because the animal has polished and cleansed that meat for us. I don't believe it's any special thing. I don't believe it's any, I mean, God did put animals on this planet to feed us. And so we should not throw that out. We should not, we should consider that as a thank you, Jesus, for these wonderful animals that we can eat and thrive. Instead of saying, I know you put these animals on the planet for us to eat, but we're going to eat these chemicals instead. No, I don't think that's a good idea. That's my personal opinion. That's how I think about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for all the wonderful comments. Thank you for subscribing and the likes for the videos. You guys keep it up. You guys, again, remember this channel is designed to encourage truck drivers to be healthier on the road, to stick to a diet they like. Doesn't have to be carb-free, doesn't have to be carnivore, but understanding the foods that we can eat that make us healthier and having some ambition to do some exercises, push-ups, whatever in the truck, get to the gym once in a while. That's what I'm hoping to inspire people to do and encourage people to do while out here on the road. So anyway, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this sort of content. Thank you.